Hi there, I'm Jeanette Lane for Australian Simply Cards, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing how to make this embossed card using the gift that's included in issue 122. So let me pull this out. I love how gorgeous this gift set is. So here is the gift set. It's called Elegant Occasions, and that's so appropriate because it is very elegant, very fancy. I love the ornate border on this embossing folder, and also we've got some great design elements here on the stamp set. Here's the card that I'm going to be making. I went for like a bronzed metallic sort of vintagey effect, and it's really easy to put together, which was surprising. Even though there's heat embossing involved, it still comes together really quickly. So to start off, we are going to grab our embossing folder, and I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of heat embossing with your embossing folder, which I know can be a little intimidating for myself, and I've heard many other crafters say the same thing, that sometimes embossing, heat embossing, or inking with an embossing folder can be a little bit tricky, but hopefully you'll see how easy this is and give it a try. So here is a piece of teal cardstock, and then I have my embossing folder. Now before I put my cardstock into my embossing folder, I want to just grab my anti-static bag and just rub that all over my piece of cardstock just to make sure that we're removing any excess static which might cause our embossing powder to fuse onto places that we don't want it to fuse to. And next I'm going to grab my Clear Mark embossing pad by Nuvo. I love this one. And I'm just going to open that up. And I'm going to get my embossing folder. Now when I ink up my embossing folder, I'm going to put the ink on the negative side of the folder, so the one with the design printed on it. And then, I don't know, you probably can't see this on camera, but this is the side, this is the positive side with the raised edges. So I want to put my ink on the negative side, so the side that's fairly smooth, you don't really feel any bumps. So make sure the ink is on this side, and we're going to be pretty generous with this, kind of doing some tapping all across the embossing folder. Now I'm grabbing the platforms that I need for embossing on my Sizzix fold-away machine. So it's the gray base platform, and then a cutting pad, and then my embossing folder and my piece of cardstock. So we're just going to put that in here. Close that up. And then put that on the platform, and then top it with another cutting pad, and we're going to roll this through. So we get that gorgeous embossed design on our cardstock, but what I want to do next is grab a piece of scrap paper and then sprinkle my embossing powder on top while the ink is still wet. And the color on this is Ancient Detail, and this is Cosmic Shimmer. And it gives us a really nice, like, bronzy copper kind of metallic finish. Once I've shaken off the excess powder, this is what I'm left with. And there's still some embossing powder, even though I've shaken it off, there's still some embossing powder on some of these raised areas. And so what I'm going to do is just take a clean paintbrush and just gently, ever so carefully, just brush off that excess powder. And then once I'm done and I'm happy, then I can go ahead and melt the powder with my heat tool. Isn't that stunning? Wow, I'm loving this. So now I'm just going to trim off this excess, right? So I'm going to just trim right on the line of my design, and I'll be right back. So here is what we're left with. I'm going to set this aside and grab another piece of teal cardstock. This is actually the scrap that I trimmed off from there. And what I'm going to do next is grab this little ornate square element from the stamp set. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this 4 times and then heat emboss it with the same ancient copper embossing powder. And then that's going to make these little corner elements, little ornate details on my card. So I'm just going to do a little bit more heat embossing. So making sure to prep my cardstock with the anti-static bag. And then I'm going to stamp this 4 times and then sprinkle my embossing powder right on top. So there's my powder. I've shaken off the excess, and now I'm going to melt the powder with my heat tool. And once I'm done there, I'm going to fussy cut these. So I'll have 4 little ornate corner elements. My little design elements are all cut out, and now the next step is to heat emboss this sentiment onto some vellum. Yes, more heat embossing. I can't get enough. So what I'm gonna do is grab a piece of vellum that fits this center square, and this is sized to 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And then I'm going to grab my sentiment, which is wishing you a day that is as special as you are, and then grabbing this border, this ornate border stamp. So I've mounted my sentiments onto my stamp block, and as you can see, the sentiment stamp really frames so nicely inside of this frame stamp. Now for my original card, I went ahead and embossed this in gold, but I'm feeling the copper today, and the gold that I used there is Wow Metallic Gold Rich Regular. So if you are interested in that, it's a really nice gold finish on that, but I wanted to keep using the copper because I am loving the copper. It's just growing on me. I don't use it that often, but man, every time I do, I'm just so impressed by the color. Whoops, and I almost forgot to prime my paper with my anti-static bag. So that's all done, and I can now stamp this. I tend to forget my anti-static medium a lot. Let me know if that happens to you as well. It's just something that I have to constantly remind myself about. All right. So I'm done with heat embossing, and I have most of the elements now for my card, so I just need to put it together. And what I've done is I've done a little matting and layering, and so I just grabbed a piece of light blue cardstock and trimmed this down to 5 inches by 5 inches, and it makes a nice frame, and it really draws our eye into this ornate border. So I'm going to glue this down with some liquid adhesive. And then I'm going to add my vellum, glue my vellum to my card front here. And the thing about vellum that you want to remember is that it's really hard to find adhesive that dries clear. So this is the reason, one of the reasons for my little ornate corner elements that I have set up here is so that I can hide the adhesive, strategically hide the adhesive that I'm going to place on the 4 corners of my vellum piece. So now I'm going to add some foam tape to the backs of these, and I wanted to add these here, but I want them to sort of pop off the page a little bit, so that's the reason why I'm using the foam tape. And if you feel like your foam tape isn't thick enough, then please feel free to double it up and just fold it over on itself, and then you can have just a little bit more depth on your elements for your card front. Our card is looking very ornate and decorative, and so I wanted to complete the look by adding some gemstones. So these are kind of like a yellowish, not yellow, what is this color? It reminds me of like butterscotch. And so I'm just gonna add some gemstones to the center of my little elements here, these ornate corner elements, and I'm gonna attach those to the card with some liquid adhesive. And this is Anita's gemstone wheel. And I'm done with my card. Don't forget to grab your copy of Australian Simply Cards issue 122, and you'll get that Elegant Occasions gift included with the issue, which is stunning. It's so much fun. There's so much you can do with this gift set. I'm Jeanette Lane for Australian Simply Cards, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.